everybody, welcome back to Muscle Car Campy. We've got another cool Mopar for you today, a 1970 Limelight 383 Road Runner. Before we get started, don't forget, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell so every time we put up a new video you get notified. But we're really excited about the car we have here today. It's a unique story. It's a car that was bought new out of Ocala, Florida. The guy who owns it today was good friends with the original family. Now the car is here at Iron Stable Garage in Largo, Florida. Everybody knows the Road Runner name was plucked in 1968 from the Saturday morning cartoon of the same name. But we're not really interested in the bird, are we? I'm more fascinated right now with Wile E. Coyote. Wile E. Coyote. Think about it. This guy was supposed to be super smart, right? He could mail order a pair of roller skates that had rockets on the bottom of them. He's in the middle of the desert and he can get anvils, rope, whatever he needs. But instead of just going to the supermarket and buying some chicken or turkey or maybe some duck, he could even go to KFC and get some fried chicken. Yet no, he's chasing this bird around and the bird foils him every time. He's not really wily. I mean, think about it. You got the bird over here, right? I love the dust trail stripe on these cars. This is so cool. And yet, you know, where's why they should have put Wiley on here, like falling off, getting hit by a train or something. Seriously, there's nothing quite like a Road Runner. Huge success story. In 1969, the Road Runner was Motor Trend's Car of the Year. 1970, they revised the grill a little bit. They had a little kick up in the center of the grill. Same thing out back with the taillights. There was a little kick up between them. A lot of people think this is maybe the best looking Road Runner. The only problem was it was also the third year of the body style. 1970 was also not a good year for muscle cars in general. Sales were not good, even on the GM side where they finally offered 454s and 455s in their muscle cars. It just didn't work out that year. Insurance was problematic. There was a lot of inflation going on. And really, sales of the 69 Road Runner were about 82,000. Sales for 1970 were a mere 39,000 and change. You know, actually there is a Coyote on the car. Here he is getting dusted on the air cleaner, the Coyote Duster air cleaner. Our subject vehicle today does have the air grabber hood. Very cool. When tested, it was worth about a tenth of a second, mile and a half and a quarter mile, so it actually does work. I went back and checked a bunch of vintage road tests, so it is very cool. I love how, you know, these old Mopars, they are cartoonish. They really got into the spirit of the whole 60s and the muscle car era. You got your purple beep beep horn here, voice of Road Runner. I mean, beautiful stuff. You know, the Road Runner wasn't the first economy-based supercar. You could buy all manner of unadorned high horsepower cars, like the 66 427 Biscayne we featured earlier this year. You know, you didn't have to buy all the bells and whistles. But as the 60s went on, most of these cars got really expensive, and by 1967 or so, the whole idea of selling a cheap high performance car to young people, you know, it was kind of gone out of control. They were getting really expensive, and the people who wanted them, a lot of them couldn't afford them. That's where the Road Runner came in. I mean, it had an interior, bench seat, column shift, rubber floor mat. I mean, it was straight out of a New York City taxi cab. Later on, they introduced a hardtop to the mix. There were only two engines available, the 383 with 335 horse and a legendary 426 Street Hemi. So, you know, yes, later on, 1969, you could get more options like this Road Runner. 1970, bucket seats, console. I mean, it really was a much more, also it has carpeting. And so it definitely was a more luxurious ride than it was. But you could still get that no option 68 Road Runner, which was awesome. This one has the tick-tock tack, the 150 mile per hour speedometer, full complement of gauges. Road Runner horn. Did we mention it has the Road Runner horn? Yes, we did.
Hey, good afternoon everybody. Chris here with Iron Stable Garage. So this car came in for some service work. It had a restoration done not too long ago, so it's not old and it's not new, but it needed a little finesse on the body work. So he had a little punch list of things to do. So what we did for the customer is some door and fender alignment, replaced some hardware in the engine bays, the fasteners and the various parts that were incorrectly painted. So that was one of the tasks that we did. Repaired some weak hood hinges. Also, we're due for some fresh tires. We installed fresh tires. We also documented everything in the chassis to put all the paint dabs and all the markings these cars went through when they were constructed on the assembly line. So we made sure that all those were put in place for the customer, and a handful of other small things and service issues like that, alignments, some drivability. We went from electronic ignition back to points, so the car is going back to its as-born state, and that was our goal, and we wrapped it up and we've got it ready for the road.
One thing I noticed, this car is really quiet. Are those the factory mufflers that are that quiet?
Yeah, they're a reproduction product, and they're really close to the original. You know, of course, when you got the motor warmed up nice and you want to get into it and run the thing, yeah, you can hear it run. You can hear the four-barrel make some noise through the open air element. It's really nice.
You know, one thing I will tell you, boy, I really do feel like I'm in a brand new car. This thing it definitely rides smooth. It's quiet. There's no rattles. This is pure B-body Mopar circa 1970, isn't it?
All the way. We have some brand new polyglass tires on here too. So I've literally probably got like 2 or 3 miles on these things. So as you notice while we're riding around here, you can feel the texture in the road a little bit.
Sure.
So they're pretty fun. So it gives you a real feel for the road. That's what's fun about the privilege of driving with tires from back in the day. They work a lot different than a modern tire that lots of folks use on the cars.
Absolutely.
But it keeps you attentive to what you're doing, and what you should be paying attention to what you're up to anyway when you're behind the wheel of these special cars.
Yeah, well, I think that's the one thing with these old cars, man. Nobody tailgated, you know, between the brakes and the tires. Braking was more of something you really planned.
Yeah, you got your schedule book out and went,
yeah,
hey, 600 feet, let's do some stopping.
That's for sure.
So you want to do some planning and use the acceleration and plan ahead.
Drum brakes all the way around?
Yeah, this is a drum brake car, and that was also part of our service while we're putting tires on the car. We inspected everything, make sure all the shoes are riding where they belong, make sure all the springs are functioning, and you know, just make sure it's all safe and ready for the customer when he gets it out for an afternoon drive, like we're doing right now. Yeah. He doesn't have to think about the car. And that's a little bit about what we're about when you bring a car by for service. And of course, when you do a full restoration with us also, this is part of the end package that we do. So you get a car built, but you still have to sort it out. So we continue to ask our customers to express patience, because you know, if you're going to use these cars, you got to get everything to work. Make sure the leaks are staying away, the alignments are working, the brakes are working, and all the functions that you've done with all the hours you spend on dash and drivetrain and window regulators, it's all happening, you know.
Well, you know, these cars are so much simpler than a modern vehicle. On the other hand, thousands of parts, all the systems, they have to work right. And, you know, that's really why like shops like yours really exist, because you are an expert in this stuff.
True.
You can make this car the way it really was in 1970.
Definitely. And that's part of what's nice about the profile of technicians with our shop too, is they've grown up experiencing these cars when they're brand new or, you know, gently used, if you want to call it that, you know, early in their career when they're 2- and 3-year-old cars. And like a couple of our guys, they've got real world experience with the type of build that the factory put out with the various brands of cars. Well, Plymouth and Dodge and GM and Ford.
I noticed one of your technicians, when he left for the evening, drove off in a 67 Coronet RT with a 440, and I was like, that's not a Prius. You know, it's beautiful. I mean, it's a real car.
Yeah.
But like I said, if you have one of those and you know what you've got to do with it from driving it every day, and like you said, these guys, you know, my first car was a 71 Barracuda. I knew my way around that car. And like I said, this thing it's really sharp. You got the 383 call out behind the hood.
It keeps you excited. that's what's fun about that. You can sit here and you've got the gauges to look at with the speedo up to 150 and a tack and a clock, and then you look at the engine call out like you said, and it's highlighted in the red and it keeps you kind of wound up. Of course, we'd be real excited if it had Hemi on there.
Yeah.
Then we'd have a different conversation today, and we'd probably make some room for some high-speed runs.
But you know what? Even back in the day, the Hemi was so almost unobtainium. It was so expensive. It was so rare. You know, the 383 here is really the everyman muscle car.
My first Mopar was a 383 Magnum powered car, and I went to a drag strip in Kentucky near where I live, Clay City, and that old B-body ran some 14s.
Yeah.
You know, and I wasn't even a good mechanic back then, and it would run 14s.
One of Plymouth's goals when they created the Road Runners, it had to be about $3,000 or less, and it had to run 125 mile.
Yeah.
And the Road Runner accomplished those goals. I mean, you compare it to, say, a 325 horse Chevelle, and it's really got a lot more pop than that, for sure. You know, this car was sold new in Ocala, Florida. The current owner knew the car since it was new, and it is really, I can imagine as a kid going for rides in it and such. And then now here you are one day, now you're actually owning it.
Yeah. Isn't that awesome? My job is to make sure it's running just as we're using it right now. It's going through the gearbox real well. There's no pinging. We've got the timing set just right. Alignment is perfect on this car. It's tracking real nice. You put your family in the back seat, and you can do it in a fashionable way.
Yeah.
And that's what's great about these cars. You got power and you got size, and you got some loud colors like we've got here, so you can really say, hey, I'm in the neighborhood. Let's see if we can give the old Road Runner a little squeeze here. Here we go. Grab some second gear. How about that for a little fun? Burn out some of that 110 octane, right?
All right, everybody, that's a wrap. This is Muscle Car Campy saying, see you later. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell so you get notified every time a new video goes live, and we'll be back with some cool stuff very shortly. Thanks for watching.